UGRC 150 Critical Thinking and Practical Reasoning. Unit 1 Sentence Shaped Thought. We do think a lot and our thoughts are transformed into sentences. So we call it sentence shaped thought. Before we say something, most of the time, about 99% of the time, we think about it before what we say it. So these sentences that come out, that we say, what are they? Let's blow it up. So we get to know that we have three types. We'll consider three types of what sentences over here in this unit. So the first one we are looking at is going to be interrogatives. So interrogatives. So interrogatives are sentences that seek information. They seek information. So we can say they are what? Questions, right? For instance, someone asks you, how are you doing? It's a question. So it's an interrogative. The person is interrogating you. Yes. So someone interrogates you. The person is asking you a question. The person needs what? Information from you. The person asks you, how are you doing? It's a question. So it's an interrogative. Do you have lectures today? It's an what? An interrogative. So that is interrogatives. Then we look at the second type, imperatives. So imperatives. So what do imperatives do? So obviously these are what? Commands. So imperative is like a command, or let me say an instruction. An instruction. You can also say it's a request. So this one gets you into action. Gets you into action. If I say sit down, you sit down, you perform an action. If I say come closer, you move towards me. If I say switch off the TV, you take the remote and switch it off. So all that imply what? Imperatives. Then the third one is what? Declaratives. Yeah, declaratives. So these are simply statements. Statements, or you can say they are propositions. You are proposing something, or you are making a statement, or you are making an assertion. So they what? Convey information. Declaratives convey what? Information. Now there's one thing we must know. Among all these three, only declaratives have what? Truth value. So declaratives have what? A truth value, which means it can either be true or false. So I can give you a true information, or let me say a true statement or a false statement. So that's one thing we must know. The other two are not what? Truth values. They do not bear truth values. Only declaratives bear truth values. So if I say she's a good friend, it's a declarative because it's giving what? An information. If I say he can score 10 goals in a row, it is what? A declarative. It doesn't have fall into imperative or interrogative. All right. Now when we come to declaratives, I would like us to look at um, some aspects of declaratives. So declaratives will have types, declaratives. Under declaratives, we are going to see factual statements. Factual statements. We already established the fact that declaratives are statements and they can either be true or false. So now under those statements, we have one called factual statements. Then when we say something is factual statements, how do we, as the name implies, it gives us what? Facts. So it's describing, sort of describing. So describing what you can see through your sense of observation. So describing, let's say describing what is there through your sense of what? Observation. Then we call it what? A factual statement. So that is one aspect of what? Declaratives. Let's take this example. If I say she's taller than me, it's a factual statement. You can clearly see that this girl is taller than ideas. It's a factual what? Statement. If I say he's wearing a blue jacket, you can clearly see that ideas is wearing what? A blue jacket. So it's a what? It's a factual statement. So let's look at the other aspects of declaratives. The other type, we call it value judgment. Value judgment. So value judgment, here you are prescribing or you are evaluating how something or someone should be. Yeah. So value judgment prescribe or they evaluate how something or someone should be. So here we are not interested in facts, but rather we are interested in what? Your viewpoint, your point of view, how something should be, how someone should act, how someone should do something. So in that case, we can split value judgment also into two. We can have the moral value judgment, and then we can also have what? The non-moral value judgment. So that's the difference between value judgment and factual statement. In factual statement, here we are dealing with facts, what you can observe. But in value judgment, you are suggesting or you are prescribing, you are evaluating what your point of view, how something is supposed to be, how things should be done. That is what value judgment, and this can be moral or non-moral. So let's say abortion is evil. Abortion is evil. So what are you doing over here? You are giving your point of view. So how will it fall? It will fall to what? It will fall in the category of value judgment, where specifically moral value judgment, because this has to do with morals. Like abortion is evil, so it has to do with what? Morals. If I say my phone's camera is very good, where will this fall? It will fall where? Value judgment. But then it will be non-moral value judgment. Then we can also use metaphors as a case. We can use metaphors to also what? Compare. Metaphors compare two things which are what? Not related. So let me say, so this is kind of linked to value judgment. Yeah, metaphors can function as value judgment. So if I say Prosper is a sunflower, then I'm comparing Prosper to what? A sunflower. Basically, I'm trying to say that what? Prosper is what? Very, very beautiful. You see? So I'm comparing. Anytime you compare two things without using like, as, or than, then we say what? It is a metaphor. If you use any of this, then it will give us what? Simile. So if I say Prosper is like a sunflower, I'm using like, that would be a simile. But here lies the case, I'm comparing two different things without using like, as, or than. So it's a metaphor. And metaphors can function as what? Value judgments. In this case, will it be moral or non-moral? Obviously, it will be what? Non-moral. This has nothing to do with morals. Yes. Then the last part of this lesson, we're going to talk about what? definition, definitions, and the parts of a definition. So let's dive into that. So a definition will basically explain the meaning of a word, right? So a definition is going to give you the meaning of a word. But this definition, later we'll talk more about definitions later. So now that will be in unit 2. Now this definition over here, we just want to look at the parts of what? The definition. So what are the parts of a definition? We have two main parts of a definition. So let me give a definition, then we look at it. So let's say I give a definition. If my mind sets me right from primary 6, I was taught that pollination is a transfer of matured pollen grains. Yeah, was it pollen grains? Yeah, it was pollen grains. Matured pollen grains from the anther, right? Yeah, from the anther to the stigma of a flower. Yeah, so this was what I was taught this definition in primary 6. And as you can see, we are defining something. We are defining pollination. So what are we defining? We are defining a word called, or a term called pollination. So this pollination is a part of the definition. Now the other component here, the other component we are seeing here is forms another part. So basically, I've divided the definition into two main parts: the actual word being defined, and then the other, the rest, the rest which explains the term or the word. So the word itself, we are going to call it what? Guess what? We are going to call it what? Definiendum. So we call it definiendum, and the rest, or the rest of the sentence, we are going to call it what? Definiens. So this is a basic analogy. We have Ghana and we have Ghanaians. You see? So Ghana is a country, right? Yes. So the definiendum is a word or the term being defined. And then Ghanaians are the citizens of the country. And look at how many we are. So the rest, or the rest of the sentence, that would be what? The definiens. So as you can see, Ghanaians, definiens. So use the analogy to differentiate between definiendum and definiens. We said that definiendum is the word being defined, and the definiens is the rest of the parts of the sentence that explains the word. So this is the end of. Oh, wait. We need to know the difference between a sentence and a statement, right? Yeah, a sentence and a statement. So we said a sentence is a group of words that made what? That make a complete thought. So words coming together to make what? A complete thought is what? A sentence. And then we have a statement which we saw earlier. So anything that can be what? A statement can also be a sentence, right? Yes. So here it can be true or false. We saw that when we did declaratives. And declaratives are forms of sentences, right? So what do you think? Are all sentences statements, and are all statements sentences? Which is which? Leave it in the comment section for me. All right. So we also have something called sentence fragments and emotive expression. So sentence fragment. Obviously, fragment means what? Just a piece, right? So over here, it is not making what? It's no longer a complete sentence. It's not making what? A complete thought. So kind of incomplete, right? If I just come and say rice and stew, rice and stew, I'll give you a sentence fragment. You ask me what has it done? You see, if I just say early this morning and I pause, I didn't say anything. Early this morning, you asked me, what happened? So these are what? Sentence fragments. So it's incomplete. It's an incomplete sentence. It doesn't make a complete thought. Then we have emotive expressions. And this is the very last one. Emotive what? Expressions. So yeah, they it's kind of like a surprise, yeah, an exclamation. You'll be like, wow. See, the mostly end with exclamation marks. Be like, oh, wonderful, wonderful performance. These are all what emotive expressions. Yeah. So you went to a concert and your colleagues really performed well. And then when they are done, you'll be like, wow, you nailed it. So you say it with some kind of um emotion. Yeah. It could be a surprise or like you're overjoyed or something. So basically this is um unit one, sentence shape thought. We spoke about the types of sentences, interrogatives, imperatives, and declaratives, and we established the fact that only declaratives have what? A truth value. And we saw the types of declaratives: factual statements, value judgments, and under value judgments can be moral or non-moral. Then we look at the parts of a definition. So we have the definiendum, which is the word or the term being defined, and the definiens. And we saw the difference between sentence and statements. And I asked you a question, right? And I asked you to leave it in the comment section for me. Um, we established a difference. So are all sentences statements, and are all statements sentences? Which is which? So let me hear you out in the comment section. You saw sentence fragments and emotive expressions. This is the end of lecture 1. UGRC 150, critical thinking and practical reasoning with ideas. Thank you.